The knife clattered against my plate as Mom's words cut through the table. "You're a failure," she said coldly, with my siblings smirking at her side. I stayed quiet, letting them laugh. But when I finally spoke, the room went silent, because I revealed the truth. The so-called failure had been paying for everything, including the very roof over their heads. The dining room smelled of roasted chicken and garlic bread, the kind of meal Mom made when she wanted everyone seated together. The table was dressed with her favorite china, the chandelier casting golden light across polished silverware. On the surface, it looked like a picture-perfect family evening. But I'd learned long ago, appearances meant everything in this house. Truth didn't. My siblings filled the space with chatter, bragging about their new jobs, their social lives, their big plans. Mom sat at the head of the table, nodding proudly at every word. Dad leaned back with his glass of wine, chuckling along, saying little. And me? I stayed quiet, cutting into my food, listening. "Daniel got a raise this week," Mom said, beaming at my brother. "And Chloe's boss told her she has real leadership potential. I always knew my children would make me proud." I waited for her to glance at me, maybe offer a small acknowledgement. But when her eyes landed on me, they hardened. "And then there's you." She set her fork down, her voice sharp enough to slice through the air. "Still nothing to show. Still the failure of this family." The words hit the table like a grenade. Daniel smirked, hiding his laugh behind his glass. Chloe's eyes sparkled with amusement, as though she'd been waiting for this moment. Even Dad didn't intervene. He just swirled his wine, pretending not to notice the humiliation unfolding at his table. I froze, the knife trembling in my hand. Failure. She had called me many things over the years, but never so openly, never so publicly. "You know what hurts most?" Mom continued, shaking her head. "I raised you with the same love, the same care, but you give me nothing back. Not success. Not pride. Nothing. You just exist." My siblings chuckled under their breath. I felt the heat rising to my cheeks, but I swallowed hard and set my utensils down. "Mom," Chloe said sweetly, tilting her head, "don't be so harsh. Maybe someday our sibling will figure it out." The laughter grew louder, sharper, bouncing off the walls until it felt like a chorus. But I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just sat there, silent, watching them revel in their cruelty. Because they had no idea. No idea who had been covering their debts. No idea who had quietly paid the bills that kept this very house standing. They thought I was useless. A failure. But tonight they would learn the truth. And once I revealed it, their laughter would never sound the same again. Mom's words at the dinner table weren't new. They were just louder. They were the echo of years I had already lived through. Years of being the afterthought in a family where Daniel and Chloe could do no wrong. When Daniel made his first soccer team at 10, Mom threw a party. Balloons, cake, neighbors invited. "My boy is going places," she bragged. When Chloe got the lead role in the school play, Dad rented a camcorder and filmed every performance. The living room shelves filled with trophies, photos, and awards. Almost all of them Daniel's or Chloe's. And me? When I came home with straight A's, Mom didn't even look up from her magazine. "That's what you're supposed to do." When I won the county spelling bee, Dad muttered, "That's nice," before changing the channel to watch Daniel's highlight reel for the 100th time. Every achievement of mine was invisible. Every flaw was magnified. I still remember one Christmas. Daniel got a brand new bicycle, red and gleaming with ribbons. Chloe got a keyboard with weighted keys so she could nurture her talent. Me. I unwrapped a box of used books, half the covers bent, some pages scribbled with notes from whoever owned them before. "You love reading," Mom said with a shrug. "This is perfect for you." That was my place. The one who didn't deserve new. The one who didn't deserve celebration. The one who was fine with less. The pattern never stopped. When Daniel crashed Dad's car, it was written off as "boys will be boys." When Chloe racked up thousands in credit card debt, Mom shook her head and said, "She'll learn." But when I asked for help paying for textbooks my scholarship didn't cover, I was met with sharp eyes and Mom's biting words. "Why can't you stand on your own? You're so needy." It was a cruel irony. I was the one they labeled the burden, the failure, yet time and again it was me who stood up when they stumbled. It was me who quietly carried the weight. And maybe that's why their words at dinner cut so deep. Not because they hurt. I was used to pain. But because of the sheer hypocrisy. Daniel and Chloe, the golden children, still lived in the glow of Mom's praise. But that glow was powered by someone they never once acknowledged. Me. The so-called failure. And one day, I promised myself, they would choke on the truth they had ignored for so long. They never noticed the way I slipped out of family gatherings early, the way I skipped vacations or wore the same shoes until the soles were thin. They thought I was boring, uninterested in fun. The truth was simpler. I couldn't afford both their comfort and my own. Because while Daniel boasted about new gadgets and Chloe flashed designer handbags, I was the one paying the bills that kept the lights on in our house. It started small. Mom called one night in tears, saying the electricity company was threatening to cut service. I was just out of college, working long hours at a job that barely covered my rent, but I sent the money anyway. Just this once, I told myself. But it was never just once. Dad's car broke down. Chloe's tuition came due. Daniel forgot about his credit card bills again. Each crisis ended with the same phone call. Jessica, you'll help, won't you? And I always did. Month after month, year after year, I transferred money, covered debts, bailed them out. They called me the responsible one, the dependable one. But behind closed doors, when the bills were paid, the insults returned. You're too quiet. You never aim high enough. You're just average. They feasted on my sacrifices while starving me of acknowledgement. The worst part? They started joking about it. Don't worry, the Bank of Jessica has us covered, Daniel said once, grinning as Chloe laughed. Even Mom smirked. I laughed too weakly, even as my chest ached. Because the truth was ugly. I was their bank. And like most banks, I had learned to keep records. Rent transfers, loan payments, receipts, tucked away in neat folders on my laptop. Proof of every sacrifice, every so-called failure, that had actually kept them afloat. I told myself I didn't need thanks. That family meant sacrifice. That one day they'd see my worth. But that night at the dinner table, when Mom called me a failure, something in me snapped. Because while she sneered across plates of food bought with money from my account, all I could think was, without me there would be no food. No lights. No roof above her head. I wasn't their failure. I was their foundation. And if I decided to stop carrying them, everything they stood on would collapse. The chicken bones were picked clean, the laughter still buzzing, and Mom hadn't let up. You just drift through life, she said, shaking her head as though I were a stain on her tablecloth. Your brother and sister give me reasons to be proud. You're nothing but a burden. Chloe giggled, twirling pasta on her fork. Don't be too hard on them, Mom. They try. The mock pity in her voice made my jaw tighten. Daniel leaned back smugly, sipping his wine. I'll say this though, they've been consistent. Always underachieving. At least that's reliable. The table erupted again in laughter loud and cruel, filling every corner of the room. I sat perfectly still, my fingers brushing the edge of my glass. For years I had endured this. Every bob, every smirk, every reminder that I was less. And all the while, I'd carried them on my back, kept the lights on in this house, covered the very meals they were mocking me over. And suddenly I knew. Tonight, it ended. I straightened in my chair. The laughter died slowly, one by one, as they noticed my silence had turned into something sharper. My gaze moved from Chloe's smirk to Daniel's grin to Mom's cold eyes. You think I'm a failure, I said evenly. But what if I told you the only reason you sit here in this house, eating this food, enjoying your lives, is because of me? Daniel frowned. What are you talking about? Chloe rolled her eyes. Oh, here we go. Mom narrowed her gaze, her tone icy. Don't make excuses. Failures always do. I leaned forward, my voice calm but cutting. Excuses? No. Receipts. Their laughter faltered. Unease rippled across the table. For the first time in years, I had their full attention. And I wasn't about to waste it. The silence around the table was sudden, jarring. For once, no one laughed. I folded my napkin neatly, placing it on the plate. You want to know what failure looks like? Look around this room. Look at everything you claim as yours. Daniel snorted. Please. Don't make this dramatic. I met his eyes, my voice steady. Do you remember 3 months ago when your electricity was almost shut off? Who wired the money to keep your lights on? His smirk faltered. That was a one-time thing. I turned to Chloe. And your rent? The one you couldn't make. Because you were saving for that handbag on your shoulder? Who transferred the money directly to your landlord? Her hand froze on the strap of her bag. That was a loan. A loan you never paid back, I said coldly. Their eyes darted between each other, small cracks forming in their smugness. Then I turned to Mom. Her smile was gone, her fork clutched tight. And you? The house you're sitting in. The mortgage you brag about paying off? You didn't. I did. Every overdue bill. Every late fee. Every phone call you ignored. Those came to me. And I covered them. Quietly. For years. The room went dead still. Daniel's glass hit the table harder than he meant to, spilling wine across the cloth. Chloe's mouth opened, then closed again, no words forming. I leaned back in my chair, calm now, my hands steady. You've called me a failure while living off my sacrifices. You mocked me as useless while feeding on my work. And the truth? Without me, you would have drowned a long time ago. No one spoke. The family that had laughed moments earlier now sat silent, their arrogance cracking like glass under pressure. I smiled faintly. Funny thing about failure. Sometimes it's just the person holding everyone else up. Mom's lips parted, but no sound came. Her face was pale, her authority trembling. For the first time, she looked uncertain. And for the first time I felt powerful. I reached into my bag and pulled out a thin folder, placing it on the table with deliberate calm. Their eyes followed the motion. Uneasy. What's that supposed to be? Daniel muttered, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. Proof, I said simply. I opened the folder, sliding papers across the table. Bank transfers. Receipts. Email confirmations. Neatly dated and highlighted. Years of evidence they never bothered to notice. Daniel, mortgage payments, car insurance, even that weekend in Vegas you swore was a work trip. I tapped the pages. All of it covered by me. His face flushed red. That can't. I cut him off. It can. It did. I turned to Chloe, sliding another stack. Tuition deposits, past due rent, the money you said you needed for groceries that magically turned into handbags and vacations. Every single transfer. From me. Her lips trembled as she scanned the pages. Finally, I pushed the largest stack toward Mom. And you. The medical bills. The house payments. The utilities. Every time you told your friends how strong you were to keep this family afloat, it was my paycheck keeping this roof over your head. Not Dad's pension. Not Daniel's bonuses. Me. The silence was crushing. Dad stared at the papers, stunned into speechlessness. Daniel shifted in his chair, his arrogance dissolving into panic. Chloe's eyes welled with tears. But Mom. Mom's jaw tightened, her pride fighting even now. You didn't have to, she whispered harshly. No one asked you. I let out a cold laugh. Didn't have to? Every time the phone rang with your so-called emergencies, you asked me. Maybe not with the words please, but with your silence when I said yes. You all knew I'd cover it. You depended on it. I leaned back, folding the folder shut. So go on. Call me a failure again. Say I'm useless. But remember this. Without me, there would have been no lights, no roof, no table for you to sit at while you insult me. No one laughed this time. For the first time, their silence felt like victory. The folder sat like a loaded weapon on the table. Pages of truth scattered between empty plates and half-drunk glasses of wine. My family, once so smug, so loud, sat in silence, faces pale as the weight of reality settled on them. Daniel's hand twitched as he pushed the papers away. So what? You kept track like an accountant? That's pathetic. But his voice cracked, betraying the fear beneath his bravado. Chloe shook her head, tears glistening. I didn't know it was that much. I just thought. You thought it was endless, I cut in sharply. You thought I'd keep bailing you out, no matter how many times you lied, no matter how many times you laughed at me after taking my money. Their eyes dropped, guilt spreading like a shadow. Finally, Mom spoke. Her voice was thin, desperate. Jessica, you don't understand. We did what we had to. You're the responsible one. You could handle it. Your brother and sister needed more support. The word stung even now. After everything, she still tried to justify it. I rose slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. You called me a failure tonight. But here's the truth. You only survived because of me. Without my paychecks, without my sacrifices, this family would have collapsed years ago. I gathered the papers back into the folder, snapping it shut. But not anymore. Their heads jerked up. The Bank of Jessica is officially closed, I said, my voice steady, final. No more transfers. No more bailouts. No more sacrifices while you mock me. From tonight on, you stand on your own. Daniel's jaw dropped. You can't just walk away. I already have, I replied coldly. Chloe whispered, please, just one more chance. I shook my head. I gave you hundreds. And you wasted every single one. Mom's hand trembled against the tablecloth. If you turn your back on us now, you'll regret it. I met her eyes, unflinching. No, Mom. My only regret is letting you treat me like an ATM instead of a daughter for this long. The room was silent. Heavy. Unbearable. But for me it felt light. Liberating. I picked up my coat and walked toward the door. Their voices followed me. Pleas, protests, fragments of excuses, but I didn't look back. At the doorway, I paused, glancing once over my shoulder. They looked small now, huddled at a table they hadn't earned. You wanted to call me a failure, I said softly. But the truth is, I was your foundation. And when I stop carrying you, your whole world crumbles. Then I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. The night air was cold, crisp, and alive with freedom. For the first time in years, I wasn't weighed down by their debt, their insults, their endless hunger. For the first time, I wasn't their bank. I was Jessica. Finally free.